Hey everybody, hope everybody's doing pretty good. So we're having to do videos now. Of course, it's the second one of our series with me, and I'm just here in my backyard. Hopefully everybody's feeling healthy, doing well. And today we're going to be talking about the space race. Now, of course, the space race is basically a spin-off of what was called the Cold War. Now, the Cold War, of course, was a political rivalry between the USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and the USA, United States of America. And this all took place after World War II to see who would be the dominant military and economic country for the rest of the 20th century, being the 1900s. Now, keep in mind that with the Cold War, a lot of things were happening, but the United States and the Soviet Union never did have a direct armed conflict. But one of the things that did happen was the space race. And the space race was seen as a uh, chance to really kind of control orbiting of the United States and trying to launch satellites, which of course you could use as spy vehicles against each other. Now, of course, this whole thing started when the Soviet Union in 1957 launched their first satellite into space successfully. Now, of course, the name of this was called Sputnik 1. And keep in mind that uh, that was in October of 1957. And only a month later, the Soviets were successful in launching Sputnik 2. Now, Sputnik 1 was unmanned, or should we say, no living creature on board. But Sputnik 2, completely different. It had a dog named Laika. Now, this dog actually was just a stray dog in Moscow, which would become probably one of the most famous dogs in history and will be continued to be remembered as the first animal in space. It wouldn't be, let's see, it wouldn't be years later until 1961 that the United States was successful in having a live animal, chimpanzee named Ham, to successfully go into orbit and come back to Earth successfully. Now, when it comes to humans in space, once again, it was the Soviet Union who was successful in getting the first human in space or in orbit, and his name was Yuri Gagarin. And it wouldn't be a couple years later, or actually, it was only a month later. Sorry, it was only a month later when the United States was able to have our first human in space, and he was actually credited with the first, I guess you might say, drivable, flyable, I guess you might say, spacecraft, where Yuri Gagarin really didn't have control of the spacecraft. He just went up and then came down, where our astronaut was able to go up, control everything, go around the Earth, and make a safe landing. Now, of course, with the Soviet Union and the United States, the tensions become much more greater in the 1960s. And in 1961, John F. Kennedy, the president at that time, wanted to make sure that we got to the moon and really improve our space initiative. So by the end of the 1960s, in July 1969, you did have a successful flight to the moon with the Apollo mission. The first person to step on the moon, of course, was Neil Armstrong, and they were up there for several hours, collecting all different types of samples, and was able to get back to the Earth very successfully. Uh, Now, of course, a lot of good things did come out of the space race. Lots of different technologies, from lasers, whether it's the laser pens, or when you go to the store, as you scan an item, or as the cashier scans the item, All that is from uh, the result of the Cold War, along with um, different types of computer technology and GPS and everything else that we kind of take advantage of today as much as we can. Now, as you go through, now I'm not going to read the whole PowerPoint to you guys, but it does talk about uh, going to the moon, the different types of missions by both countries. But keep in mind that it's more usually private industry and including NASA still trying to track as much as they can and plot as much of the moon as they can. Uh, Anyways, that's just kind of a very brief overview of this. If you have any questions, of course, uh, go ahead and contact us. But I think it's all pretty straightforward. And I hope everybody's doing wonderful. And we'll be talking to you soon. Bye.